regularly, but this was a little. Fox News chief political analyst Brit Hume, so good to see you. In all your years of covering Washington, D.C., the Pentagon is one that does briefings quite regularly, but this was a little unusual. Wanted to get your take on how you thought they did this morning.
Well, I was very impressed, especially with General Kane, whose description of how as Jennifer has just outlined, of how the targeters in the Pentagon, going back, 15 years, had planned for this moment. The B-2 had been built for this moment, and the bunker buster bombs had been too for this very moment. And I think it's fair to say that the problem with that early report that leaked out of the Defense Intelligence Agency was that it wasn't really plausible that ordnance of this capacity that had been tested to the extent it could be by the U.S. military, and that, so far as we could tell, struck the target precisely, would have done only limited damage. It was obviously a preliminary report, and as Jennifer pointed out in her reporting when it first came out, it was low confidence, and it seems to have deserved low confidence based on all that we've heard since. Obviously, final reports are yet to be heard, but it was an impressive briefing, especially by General Kane. I'd like to say a word, if I may, Dana, about Jennifer Griffin, who was attacked by the Defense Secretary today, an attack she certainly, in my view, did not deserve. Her professionalism, her knowledge, and her experience at the Pentagon is unmatched, and I have had and still have the greatest regard for her. The attack on her was unfair.
One thing I was going to mention about that, Bill, Britt, is that the DIA is kind of like on the first level of intel. It gets higher up as you go to the CIA and DNI. And it reminded me of the 2004 exit polls, right? These first reports can often be wrong, and that's what they were trying to correct today. Bill.
Britt, I was just going to ask you.
It was a typical.
Go ahead, Britt.
Go ahead, Bill. I'm sorry.
No, please go.
No, I was just going to say that it is typical of the media in our age that any negative report that you can get your hands on in the aftermath of the United States military action is going to be highlighted, played up, and so on, despite the fact that it was early, based on very little and low confidence. And it's disappointing that happens and continues to happen, but it does.
Yeah, Brett, you can tell the administration is just really irritated about those initial leaks and how they were portrayed in the leaks to the media. The president last night, when he was announcing this press conference, teased it as offering irrefutable proof that these strikes were a success. Do you think they achieved that with this press conference this morning?
Well, I think they probably helped, particularly General Kane's comments. And look, there's now a body of response that we've seen to this initial report, and we're hearing it from all kinds of quarters, as has been outlined by Jennifer and others, to the effect that the likelihood that this was a very great success is the real deal. So obviously we await final reports. First reports are inevitably unreliable and should be so treated. But I think they made some strides today toward straightening out what I think was some misleading reporting.
The administration really is focusing on whoever the leaker was. It was classified information. It was leaked to the media. That is not allowed. Todd Blanche was on with Laura last night. Watch.
Is the DOJ prepared to charge whoever is responsible, and what could those charges look like?
I mean, absolutely.
Hello,
of course we're ready. And you better believe, and the American people better know for sure that this is exactly the type of conduct that we will investigate fully. Whether it's treasonous and whether someone will be charged with treason, listen, we'll work that out, but you better believe that the Department of Justice is going to do everything we can to find out who did this.
A lot of these leak investigations don't ever ultimately result in something. Is this one possibly different?
Yeah, well, Dan, as you suggest, there's a long history of leak investigations and an even longer history of leaks, and most of them come to nothing. Leakers know what they're doing, and they do it because leaking is a way to try to exercise power and influence the national discussion. And most of the time, they don't find out who leaked them. We still don't know who leaked that Supreme Court opinion in the Dobbs case. We still don't know who left the cocaine in the White House. And the list of these things goes on and on. I hope they find the leaker. It was not inappropriate to leak, but I wouldn't hold my breath.
Britt, I watched some of your posts on social media.
Thank you, Eric.
You've got, some concerns about some of the reporters that initially picked up the leak or the pieces of the leak that came out initially. Your thoughts?
Well, the main thing, look, I don't have any objection to reporting the existence of this early report from the Defense Intelligence Agency. What I object to is it being played up as if it were some final judgment, and, and particularly a report on CNN left out the fact that this was held in low confidence. That's important. That's a critical detail. I know Jennifer reported when she reported on this, but certain others didn't, especially that CNN report, done by a reporter, by the way, who fell hook, line, and sinker for the Steele dossier, which is now totally discredited, and also bought into the idea that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. So someone who should be regarded, I think, with skepticism.
Low confidence, sort of like America's feelings about the media. All right, Britt Hume, thank you so much. It's great to see you today.
Thanks, Britt.
Oh no. Devaju, do you support? Oh, I need to block and hide some users now. I don't know.
See you today.
Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb, Army veteran, Black Hawk helicopter pilot, and international military strategist in focus now. We heard incredible detail, and I want to get into that now because Americans likely won't see this anywhere else unless they watch this morning. And I'm disappointed that we hadn't kept our focus on the fine men and women of the military, but we did it today. So if you'll give me just a moment, I want people to see this from the Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman, Dan Kane.
For more than 15 years, this officer and his teammate lived and breathed this single target, Fordo, a critical element of Iran's covert nuclear weapons program. They literally dreamed about this target at night when they slept. They thought about it driving back and forth to work, and they knew from the very first days what this was for. And then, on a day in June of 2025, more than 15 years after they started their life's work, the phone rang and the President of the United States ordered the B-2 force that you've supported to go strike and kill this target.
Heroes in motion. We're thankful to all of them. First of all, your thoughts on that, and then we'll move forward.
Eric.
Yeah, good morning, Harris. It's always impressive to be able to see what the American military can do. The debate over whether or not we should, that resides in the hands of the politicians. Let them answer those questions. But when it comes down to executing missions with expertise, we have shown on more than one occasion, and this is just another one, that we can fly around the world, target you very quickly, very surgically, and return home. Nobody else can do that. And that's what the American taxpayer can see in the expertise of the American military. And everybody around the world, I guarantee you, heard those explosions one way or another, and they're thinking twice about some of the things they may have heard about the U.S. military.
Are you okay, Eric?
And I hope they are, because our goal is to make sure that we're never needed in the first place.
That's exactly right, and that's what President Trump was saying. He wanted this to go in, be a precision strike, and then everybody made it back, and they did. It was remarkable and a blessing. Look, what is important for Americans to know at this point? You've got a low confidence, leaked assessment early on before much was known at all. We're still waiting for the actual assessment that will count, if you will, with more people on the ground, scientists, et cetera. But what do you think the American public should know at this point about the effectiveness of what our military just pulled off?
Well, first of all, Harris, I would say be patient. One of the truisms in the military is that the first report is always wrong. And unfortunately, in this case, that first report came with someone with an agenda behind them to try to show that this didn't work. So that patience means the American people should wait for an actual complete assessment. You can't assess this from airborne and space-based platforms purely. It has to have a human intelligence component to it with some eyes on or better evaluation of what is happening. That's not done yet. It needs to be done. I'm sure it will be done fairly quickly. But initial reports that close to the activity,
Eric, can you do
you
this?
can never rely on them. And so it's worth
Watch
being
my
patient
eyebrow.
and to know
Eric,
when the truth comes out, it will come out. And this was a precision
Eric,
strike by a massive ordnance
can
penetrator.
you do this?
These bombs don't miss.
Check my eyebrow.
And when they hit, there is a significant response with what they're capable of
Can
doing.
you do
I'm
that?
familiar enough with them to know what they're capable of.
Oh, come
Whatever they
on.
hit, they were effective.
Don't move the
It's
other
just a
side.
question of
Only
how
one side
effective
you can
were
move.
they and how long would it take for Iran to try to rebuild? I
Like
think
that.
we're at the point
Don't
of
move
them
the other eyebrow.
taking years to have to rebuild their capabilities, if ever.
If you're a good
That part of what
listener
you
to the
just
news,
said
you can
about the
do that.
rebuild for years from now is what we've heard from the director of the IAEA and also from Iran saying it was heavily damaged. And we know the president and we know Israel have both said it. So, I mean, we have to have patience for the details on this. But what do you make of, that's more than a triangle of sources right there.
It is, and I think what you're getting to is a high confidence assessment that's going to happen very quickly because the American people rightfully are demanding answers that they are owed. And that's, of course, outside of the classified arena that will come in different ways, that Congress will also have to answer those questions, have those questions asked as well. And all that is to follow. We do have time. At this point, there's no emergency. There's no rush to form conclusions that are based on limited intelligence or lack of knowledge. That's why I believe that the American people do need to have patience. But I do believe this administration will provide some answers very quickly.
Yeah, and the American people deserve the truth and not some politically or otherwise driven, slow drip of misfacts, misinformation, and perhaps an agenda, as you pointed to. So there is an FBI criminal investigation looking into who might have leaked this information. Let's move on, though, for what I've been promising so far this hour, and that is a lot more detail on that mission, which came via, and one point, Chairman Kane, who also highlighted the young soldiers who were tasked with defending the largest U.S. base in the Middle East when Iran retaliated. Let's watch.
The oldest soldier was a 28-year-old captain.
Wow,
the youngest
28.
was a 21-year-old private who'd been in the military for less than 2 years.
Really,
Imagine you're that young first lieutenant,
Okay.
you're 25 or 26 years old, and you've been assigned as the tactical director inside the command and control element. You, at that age, are the sole person responsible to defend this
So
base.
how old are you,
As
Don?
the targets were detected, round after round of Patriot missiles are ejected from their canisters by an initial launch charge. Then the main solid rocket
for the
motor
love, for the
ignites.
heart.
You can feel this in your body if you've ever been around a Patriot taking a shot. And round after round goes out and guides against those missiles coming inbound. We believe that this is the largest single Patriot
Really, Eric?
engagement in U.S. military history. These awesome
You're so
humans,
nice.
along with their
Don't
Qatari
do
brothers
that,
and
don't.
sisters in arms, stood
Oh my
between a
God, I'm
salvo
old.
of
I'm
Iranian
38 now.
missiles and the safety of Al Udeid. They are the unsung heroes of the 21st century United
I'm old
States
woman.
Army.
Sir, you have served. You get the last word.
These are the kind of people that America grows. And it doesn't matter what age they are. When they're very young, they are capable of doing great deeds, and they'll continue to do so. America's lieutenants are non-commissioned officers without whom we would cease to function
Okay, I
as
go
a
watch now.
military, are the ones who are capable
Just
of
listen to my
these
radio.
great deeds, and they will continue to do so.
And you
This is
can
what
see
makes
a
America's
lot of,
military
you know,
great. It's not
you can see
grand
at my back.
statements from
You
podiums
can
by
see
generals.
there a
And
lot
I love
of,
General Kane, by the way. It's
I don't
soldiers
have a
on the
sugar
ground,
yet.
sailors, airmen, Marines, who take the initiative to do what is right when the
Okay,
time
don't
is
rush.
right, no matter what is going
Oh,
on in the
thank you,
halls of
Eric.
D.C.
Thank
All
you
they
for the
know is they
flowers.
have to do the best job they can. this is what they do, and they'll continue to do so.
See you in a bit.
Colonel Gobb, thank you.
Done. Coffee.
Thank you, Harris.
Yeah.
We're going to send it out to
I have my
Alexandria
coffee.
Hoff live at the White House. Alex, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Bill. Yeah, this briefing that we had just seen, this was the Pentagon's moment to tell the story of this mission, explain what the weapons used are capable of, and in doing so, counter reports that had drawn into question the effectiveness of this mission. General Kane explained a little bit more about how all of this went down and the intricacies of Operation Midnight Hammer. Listen.
The primary kill mechanism in the mission space was a mix of overpressure and blast, ripping through the open tunnels and destroying critical hardware. The majority of the damage we assessed based on our extensive modeling was a blast layer combined with the impulse extending from the shock. Imagine what this looks like 6 times over.
With Neo Plus, transfer your salary and avail 6.25% per annum. No minimum balance required. Can't transfer salary? No problem. Get 5% per annum when your minimum balance is 50,000 dirhams. Non-stop earnings on savings with 0 fee. With Neo Plus, there's always more. Get up to 5,000 dirhams joining bonus. Suite of digital investment solutions to help you grow your wealth. Don't just take our word for it. Mushrek is rated as the top banking app in the UAE with a 4.8 rating. Download Mushrek mobile app to open a Neo Plus Saver account now.
I just want to say how very sorry I am for...
She should be locked up until she tells us what happened.
The truth is that I want an answer just as bad as all of you.
We're talking about 17 kids in one classroom. I want to know what happened in that classroom. Why just her classroom? Why only her?
There are children. I love those kids.
This is a true story that happened right here in my town. A lot of people die in a lot of really weird ways in this story, but you're not going to find it in the news.
Those kids walked out of those homes. No one pulled them out. No one forced them. What do you see that I don't? Show me. Where did you go?
There's something very, very wrong going on.
Anything like that in my life.
Are you watching? Are you watching? Are you watching? Are you watching?
Oh, sorry.
Imagine what this looks like 6 times over.
So he says everything worked as planned. All of these weapons performed as they were expected to on an operation that really was 15 years in the making, because as General Kane explained, there had been somebody, 2 individuals actually in the intelligence community watching Fordo specifically as a site suspected of nuclear enrichment this entire time, and looking what kind of weapon would be needed to destroy this. It was explained to us and to all press that were there that an attack on a mountainside covered nuclear site really would require the kind of weaponry that would first blast open the cap that they have. That is what happened. The rest went down into the ground, 1,000 feet per second, I believe the general said, exploding in that mission space where really the hub of Iran's nuclear capabilities. Weapon number 6 then was there covered just in case one of those jets or weapons did not work. General Kane saying today it's really not his job to assess the aftermath, but he knows everything worked as it should.
The Joint Force does not do BDA. by design, we don't create our own homework. The intelligence community does.
Wait a
But
minute, I
here's what
just
we
ate
know
my
following the attacks and the strikes on Fordo. First, that the weapons were built, tested, and loaded properly. Two, the weapons were released on speed and on parameters. Three, the weapons all guided to their intended targets and to their intended aim points. Four, the weapons functioned as designed, meaning they exploded.
All right, so something the White House is now looking into is the way that they share information with members of Congress. There's clearly an indication there that they feel like that some of this leaked initial assessment might have come from that direction. The White House, also, officials in law enforcement, federal law enforcement, are looking into potential charges for whoever this leak is found to have been. This was early information, they said, and that reporting, the administration feels kind of lacked the full scope of that anyway. They found that to be reckless and an insult to the pilots and all of those who bravely contributed to Operation Midnight Hammer. Jennifer Griffin did ask an important question during this briefing today. She asked about certain imagery that was captured that showed Iranian trucks, I think she said, that had been seen on site one day, gone the next. That kind of contributes to this idea that Iran might have been moving their enriched uranium in the days prior to this attack. Secretary Hegseth, when asked about that, said that they are still looking at understanding where all the pieces were at what time. Guys.
All right, Alex Hoff with a great wrap-up of what we just saw this morning. Alex, thank you.
We are awaiting new comment from the White House regarding the leak of a low-confidence preliminary report on last weekend's strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. In just under an hour from now, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt will be holding a press briefing, no doubt answering questions about the newly launched investigation into the source of that leak report, as well as the media's narrative that the strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities were not as successful as the administration claimed. So they are irresponsibly using that document with low confidence, even though more information is still coming out. This is Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner here with my co-host Emily Campagno. Also joining us today, Laura Trump, host of My View with Laura Trump, Leslie Marshall, Fox News contributor, and Guy Benson, Fox News contributor and host of The Guy Benson Show on Fox News Radio. Earlier today, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth set the record straight, refuting a leaked Pentagon report which claimed United States strikes had limited impact on Iran's nuclear program, all while touting the success of Operation Midnight Hammer.
It says in the report, multiple linchpin assumptions are what this assessment, a linchpin assumption, you know what that is? That means your entire premise is predicated on a linchpin. If you're wrong, everything else is wrong. Here's the head of the UN Atomic Energy Agency this morning, Rafael Grossi. U.S. and Israeli strikes caused enormous damage to Iran's nuclear sites. Don't take my word for it. How about the IDF's chief of staff? I can say here that the assessment is that we significantly damaged the nuclear program, setting it back by years. John Ratcliffe, the director of the CIA, putting out a statement just last night. CIA can confirm that a body of credible intelligence indicates Iran's nuclear program has been severely damaged by recent targeted strikes. How about DNI Tulsi Gabbard yesterday? She writes, and I quote, "New intelligence confirms what POTUS has stated numerous times. Iran's nuclear facilities have been destroyed." Those that understand, those that see, those that do proper assessments recognize that what the United States military did was historic.
I'm back. I just took
President Trump taking no issue with Secretary Hegseth's press briefing. He wrote this on Truth Social, "One of the greatest, most professional, and most confirming news conferences I have ever seen." Exclamation point. The White House now wants to limit classified information shared with Congress, a sign of where it thinks the preliminary assessment leak came from. And the president's deputy attorney general says the leaker will be charged to the fullest extent of the law.
I mean, absolutely. Of course we're ready. You better believe, and the American people better know for sure that this is exactly the type of conduct that we will investigate fully. Whether it's treasonous and whether someone will be charged with treason, listen, we'll work that out, but you better believe that the Department of Justice is going to do everything we can to find out who did this.
UAE is the best place to start your business now, and Sharjah is the right place to do that. You want to know why? Let me show you. Here we are in the best.
Okay.
Guy, this isn't about whether or not the report was put out there. It's how it was put out there. It's the fact that the journalists didn't question any of that who put that out there in legacy media and made it appear as if that was the one that we had all been waiting for. Although it's labeled low confidence. I don't know about you, but I don't even take baby aspirin with low confidence. I mean, come on. If it says that on the label, you're looking for the real stuff.
I would think that within journalism circles, if you got this leak, you'd have to at least do a little check in your mind about basic logic and common sense.
On this YouTube channel.
You're like, okay, I'm a curious person. The Israelis have had air superiority over Iran for the better part of 2 weeks, bombing whatever they feel like at will, basically. The United States comes in with this extraordinary, unique technology with bullseye hits. Oh, and by the way, the Israelis took out the brains behind the nuclear program, all those scientists, and yet that only set the program back by a few months. It doesn't make any sense just to a non-expert, outside observer like myself or like your typical journalist. I think what Secretary Hegseth did there was really smart. He said, don't take my word for it. Let me go through all the different intelligence agencies that have come to a different conclusion, including the IAEA, which is an intelligence, but this is their bread and butter. This is what they do. The Israelis clearly have extraordinary intelligence penetration into Iran. They've come to the same conclusion as we have, but we're all supposed to focus on this one report with low confidence. Doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Emily. And I want to focus for a moment on the nexus between the legacy media's amplification of a low confidence report in stark contrast to under the prior administration when they would rely heavily on the actual sources. So here's a couple examples. And the point too is that the Biden administration botched it. So number one, remember that the Biden administration relied heavily on the intelligence community's assessment of how long the Taliban would be able to stay in power, right? Yep. That turned out to be totally different, but the press ran with it at the time. And what about the Chinese spy balloon, right? Then President Biden told us many times it's upon dependence of the intelligence community's assessment, historical and real time, that we made the decision to shoot it down over water, to let it ride across the whole country. The press amplified that and didn't question it. And what about the 51 former intelligence officials that signed that letter that turned out to be completely false about Hunter Biden's laptop and Russian disinformation that the press ran with and failed to correct later? And so now you contrast that with a low confidence one report of the 17 intelligence agencies that all of a sudden that is somehow amplified when the director of the CIA says it was successful. Iranian, Israeli officials, everyone is saying it was successful, but one lone small voice that happened to leak it to another legacy figure, and that's what they amplify. It just shows the rot still exists and that it is purely political in legacy media.
Yeah, or laziness. I mean, that's my greatest concern as a journalist. I'm just thinking, are we losing our curiosity and they simply take what they fed? They're fed because it does fit that narrative. That is really unfortunate.
Yeah, well, that is exactly right. And I think that trying to spin a narrative out of this is very concerning. You know, before we're Republicans or Democrats, we're all Americans, right? That's what we should all remember in this moment. This was a monumental, historic achievement. This is something to go in and take out these nuclear sites that presidents before Donald Trump said they all wanted to do. He was able to get it done. This is a low confidence report, and the fact that you had the legacy media pouncing on it, that it seemed like they were attempting to weaken America and our footing on the world stage at such an important time like this. You know, you want America to lead from a place of strength. You want us to be able to say, here, we're going to lay it all out for you on the table. Here's every single report, as Pete Hegseth did there. He read all the way down and said, no, we know we got this. We know we got this. You don't want America on its heels in a weakened state whenever we are on the precipice of Middle East peace. You want us in a strong state. And it felt like, I think to a lot of us out there, that the goal of this was the media to attack Donald Trump, as they always do. And anything he does, if he says up, they say down. We know how it always goes, and that's very disappointing.
You know what I'm thinking as you're talking? Whose side are they on?
Well, that's right.
Like, is it the American public in doing their job and getting the information right? I mean, I had news directors tell me it's great to be first. It's most important to be right. Anyway, I want to get to this before I come to you, Leslie. General Kane, who's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff this morning, talked about the Americans who defended the American air base in Qatar during Iran's retaliation. Let's watch that.
The oldest soldier was a 28-year-old captain. The youngest was a 21-year-old private who'd been in the military for less than 2 years. So let's put ourselves out there for a second. Imagine you're that young first lieutenant, you're 25 or 26 years old, and you've been assigned as the tactical director inside the command and control element. You, at that age, are the sole person responsible to defend this base. Listening next to you is your early warning operator whose job is to notify you of imminent attack. There's 5 people inside a vehicle and 5 people outside of a vehicle around these, a total of, as I said, 44. We believe that this is the largest single Patriot engagement in U.S. military history.
I know your home state of California has the highest number of military veterans in the country. And so we appreciate them. I do want to say that when you hear that level of detail, it's hard not to thank everybody who's ever put that uniform on, especially the youngest among us who did it last weekend.
Well, that's where you and I have something in common, both our dads, right? My dad in the Korean War. Yeah, we're both military kids.
And my dad.
Mentor.
Listen, I want facts, right? And I want journalists to put out facts. And I do think somebody's like, okay, I've got this and I've got this fast. But a lot of the stuff that we have coming out is fast. So let me quote the president himself when we talk about, of course, I have to put my password in because I'm going to quote it, right? The president said, quote, the intelligence was very inconclusive. The intelligence says we don't know. It could have been very severe. That's what the intelligence says. So I guess that's correct. But I think we can take the we don't know. It was very severe. It was obliteration. Here's the thing. The top brass at the Pentagon have said to have a really deep dive into this is going to take a long time. We're not going to know. Did Iran move any of the uranium, specifically Fordo? Can they dig Fordo out? They're talking about just water and electrical issues once they dig out. How long will that take? And I think not just the American, citizens and voters, but certainly the House and the Senate have a right and a necessity to know all of those details and those specifics. And that's what I saw coming out as an American in questions after that leak. Leak, terrible, but what the leak did is prompted more questions to get more specific with regard to how bad were they hit, and how long would it take, and did they move any of that uranium before this bomb?
Leslie, I would say this just real quickly, and Guy, I'll go to you next. None of what you just asked should be predicated on something that was leaked, because it's not necessary. I asked those questions too. I want all those answers.
Oh no, I agree with you. You don't need the leak to have that.
I don't predicate it on, well, somebody told me that.
Those are the questions I asked before, and I'm still asking.
They may sort of kind of know the answer. No, I mean, you obviously want to know what happened.
I would just make a very quick point. You said when the regime starts digging out Fordo. I think it's an if, because the Israelis are watching them like a hawk. They're not going to let them dig out. They've got control of the skies.
Well, no, I disagree. I would say when. All
right.
Relationships are built on time and trust.
How nice of it.
No, I disagree. I would say
all
when.
a warrior,
I would say when.
Your great-grandfathers.
Well, and I would also echo what Guy said earlier, which is that the top scientists there in the country who were developing this nuclear program were all taken out as well. So even if they move some of that uranium, even if there's anything left, it'll be a long time, thank God, before they get their hands on anything that's concerning to the world, I think.
Yeah, the administration said that the DIA report was low confidence intel. Can you share what other assessments are currently underway to get to the bottom of just how effective these strikes were?
Yes, well, I can assure you what the CIA director said, that when we look at the entirety of the intelligence that we have to this date, it concludes that these strikes on the Iranian nuclear facilities were absolutely successful. It was a total obliteration, as the president said, and not only does our own intelligence say that, but also the Iranian foreign minister has said that. We saw Israel conclude the same thing based on their own intelligence. We also had the United Nations say that as well. So I think the only other time the United Nations, Israel, Iran, and the United States has agreed on something is that the sky is blue, but they all agree that Iran's nuclear facilities were completely demolished. And I would just like to reemphasize, you mentioned this was a low confidence preliminary intelligence assessment, and the entirety of that assessment was not leaked to the media. Only tidbits of that assessment were leaked to CNN, and we have seen this playbook run before, where you have people in the intelligence community, or perhaps on Capitol Hill, we don't know, but I believe the FBI is investigating to find out who that leaker was, because it's illegal, and they should be held accountable for that, leaked bits and pieces of an intel assessment to push a false narrative. And it's to the same reporter, I will add, Natasha Bertrand of CNN, who has done this in the past. In 2020, it was Natasha Bertrand who had 51 intelligence analysts falsely lie to her, but she still put it on paper for some reason.
Okay,
that
now
the Hunter
it's
Biden
Japan
laptop
mentor,
story was
huh?
Russian disinformation. We all know that's not true, right? We can all agree on that now. That was a lie from the intelligence community. Also in 2020, this same reporter, Natasha Bertrand, wrote that a top intel agency ruled out the man-made lab leak theory of the coronavirus origins. Again, the president was right about that. This reporter wrote a lie from the intelligence community to seek a narrative she wanted to prove, and guess what? We now know that's the truth. Also, in 2024, Bertrand pushed the suckers and losers hoax. She also pushed the fine people hoax, which was taking the president's words purposely out of context. And then last October, and I believe this is notable, Natasha Bertrand published an article in Politico from the intelligence agency. She said that John Ratcliffe was speaking without any evidence when he said Iran was attempting to undermine President Trump's presidential campaign. And then we, of course, found out that was absolutely true. In fact, the Biden administration declassed an intel report which said they had high confidence that Iran had done exactly what Ratcliffe alleged. They did run an influence campaign to hurt President Trump's candidacy. In fact, we know the Iranians tried to take President Trump's life. And so this is a reporter who has been unfortunately used by people who dislike Donald Trump in this government to push fake and false narratives. She should be ashamed of herself. And that's not what reporting is. Journalism is trying to find the facts and the truth. And this week we saw this same reporter being used to push a fake narrative to try to undermine the President of the United States, and more importantly, the brave fighter pilots who conducted one of the most successful operations in United States history. And I think the American people fully know that this operation was a complete and total success.
Back to our top story now. The Trump administration refuting a leaked Pentagon report that claimed the U.S. strikes had little impact on Iran's nuclear program. Joining us now is House Intel Chair and Arkansas Republican Congressman Rick Crawford. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. So where are you and where is your thinking on all of this? What should people believe?
Well, I think we buried the lead here. Look, the strikes were wildly successful, and what did they accomplish? It's be less about the damage they inflicted on the installations there and more about what they did to bring Iran to the table. And essentially, this strike led to peace in the Middle East. And I think if we can focus on that, we can get past all this rhetoric about how much damage was inflicted or was not inflicted. And I think that's the real point of the story.
But some of the fallout appears to be, Congressman, that the president is maybe not going to be so free in sharing classified information with Congress. This, according to Axios, quote, Trump to limit sharing classified info with Congress after leak on Iran bombing damage. We are declaring a war on leakers, a senior White House official said on Wednesday. Now, Caroline Leavitt said she didn't know if this leak came off Capitol Hill or if it came from someone within the DIA or someone else. But what do you think about the president and the notion that he's not going to be so quickly sharing classified information with you folks on Congress?
Well, I understand his feeling on that. I mean, I'm equally outraged about leaks wherever they came from, and it's our responsibility in my lane and as chairman of this committee to make sure that we're doing everything we can to be good stewards of classified information. So we are redoubling our efforts at the committee level to make sure that none of this kind of thing would ever happen on our watch, at least on my watch, making sure that we're doing everything right. But I understand the president's sentiment, but we have to be also conscious of the fact that Article 2 gives us authority to oversee the executive branch, and so there's a balance there that we need to strike, but we need to show the president that we're taking this seriously, and we are, and that's why we're redoubling our efforts to let him know that we can be trusted with classified material.
Well, Congressman, as you know, this White House continues to be pressed by the media on whether or not any of the uranium that was in Fort O, for example, was moved to begin with, noting the trucks that were pulling up. Caroline Leavitt was asked about this just a few moments ago, and here's how the White House is responding to that. Listen.
So we were watching closely, and there was no indication to the United States that any of that enriched uranium was moved prior to the strike.
So are you satisfied with that answer, or do you still have more questions about that?
Well, I can tell you this, that the president gets more and more in-depth intelligence than I get. And so if the president is satisfied with that, I'm satisfied with that, and I'm not going to question that.
So one other thing, and that is that there's supposed to be a classified briefing happening, and Democrats have been hopping up and down complaining about the fact that it hasn't happened yet. Now Senator Schumer is hopping up and down about the fact that he's only going to get the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of State there before his committee. Listen to what he said.
Now they're trying to get away with sending only the Secretary of State and Defense for tomorrow, instead of the usual intelligence officials that attend the briefings. Let's be very clear. Briefing from only the Secretaries of State and Defense would be woefully insufficient. If they are the only ones in attendance, they will only parrot whatever the president wants them to say.
What's your response to that, Congressman?
That's sort of par for the course for Senator Schumer, so I try not to pay much attention to what he says.
All right, Congressman, I appreciate your time and joining us today. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Boy, wouldn't that be something? Well, all right, for more on the investigation into the leaks, let's bring in John Yoo, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General and former law clerk for Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. See, here's what Caroline Leavitt said about the leak just a short time ago in the briefing. Listen here.
When you travel, you open yourself up to the unknown, and that can make you hesitant.
Leaking top secret classified intelligence is a crime, and people need to be held accountable for that crime. This administration wants to ensure that classified intelligence is not ending up in irresponsible hands. We need to get to the bottom of it, and we need to strengthen that process to protect our national security and protect the American public.
So the provenance of this document was the Defense Intelligence Agency. We don't know where the leak came from. The contents of the report were later confirmed to Fox News. I don't know if it was actually declassified, but it would seem at the moment that the leak occurred, this was classified information. So what are the remedies here under the statutes?
So there's something called the Espionage Act, which is the primary law that the Justice Department uses against leakers of classified information. If this person who leaked the document is in the DI, the Defense Intelligence Agency, or the Pentagon, and it's classified, it sounds like the report is classified top secret, if not higher, then they could be prosecuted and punished with up to 10 years in prison and a fine. It is actually the most serious thing that the government can do, other than charging someone with treason for releasing classified information that's so important and it is so important to the national defense. If you're Iran and you see that report or you learn information about that report, you will have some idea about what kind of intelligence assets we have in Iran, whether we can detect or not detect information. So this is exactly the kind of thing the Espionage Act is designed to punish.
Right, because as I recall, the report said that through visual reports and SIGINT, which is signals intelligence, so that may in some way be nodding to sources and methods.
Yes, and in fact, that could be another violation. Is one thing, you're releasing the report. The other thing is you're releasing information about how we're able to intercept electronic communications on the other side, what you call SIGINT, signals intelligence. That itself is another violation of the Espionage Act. So whoever did this is in a lot of trouble, because you're talking about 20 years now in prison and fines. But we should also focus on, think about how this is going to harm the way our government makes national security decisions. When we're going to have the next bombing attack, we have to do the next damage assessment. This is going to cause problems for us actually credibly thinking about, did we cause enough damage? Should we go back? People are going to be reticent. They're not going to be candid in these documents if they're going to get leaked out into the open.
So the FBI is looking into this. The Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche says that he is prepared to bring journalists and other correspondents in to ask some questions about where this leak might have come from. And he says that nobody is immune to this, because there's a chance maybe it came off Capitol Hill, we don't know. He said that no one is immune from criminal liability for putting the safety of the United States at risk. But then there's the chain of custody kind of thing. So if it came out of the DIA, That you believe would be a crime. What if some lawmaker who was briefed on it released the information to a journalist? Would that be a crime? Is it a crime to publish it?
John, any Fox News host that needs legal representation, I'll give you a discount. Okay? But this is actually a very serious issue that the Justice Department, when I worked at the Justice Department, we had to grapple with this exact issue.
Hello, Michael. Thank
the
you for coming.
Todd Blanche is right. The statute does not say journalists are off limits. Senate aides are off limits. It just says anyone who gets classified information, they're not authorized to handle it, and they release it or pass it on, and they intend to harm the United States, that's 10 years in jail. So the Justice Department has historically not gone after media organizations, not gone after hosts, because you would have a First Amendment claim. The courts have never upheld it, but you would have a First Amendment claim. I didn't steal anything. I was just doing my job as a member of the press to report.
But certainly we've seen in the past that there have been some famous cases of people being jailed. Jack Teixeira, who is the Massachusetts Air National Guard service member, sentenced to 15 years for leaking hundreds of classified documents online. Bradley Manning, sentenced to 35 years for a role in WikiLeaks. So these are service members. These were people who got this out of the government servers. So we know what happens to them potentially. We'll see what happens if you're sort of two or three people down the line, I guess.
The point is the government can best police this by punishing the people in the government who have the obligation to keep it really secret. It becomes, as you said, John, once you get into these chain of custody ideas, once you try to prove, does someone really have an intent to harm the United States when they got it, maybe when they published it, those are harder prosecutions to make. So that's why the Justice Department has paused and not brought those cases.
Got it. Thank you for joining us today, John. It was great to get your expertise, and perhaps we will see you back here again tomorrow for some very important Supreme Court announcements. Thanks. Love to.
So some new remarks on social media from Iran's Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, claiming that Iran has, quote, nearly brought Israel to its knees. He is also declaring victory over the United States.
They attacked our nuclear facilities, which is, of course, subject to independent prosecution in international courts. But they were not able to achieve anything significant. They couldn't do anything. They couldn't achieve their intended goal. The Islamic Republic delivered a hard slap to the face of America. It attacked one of America's key bases in the region, Al Udeid Air Base, and inflicted damage.
There's a lot of spin going on there. Let's bring in retired four-star General Jack Keane, Fox News senior strategic analyst, former vice chief of staff of the Army, and chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. He's trying to spin this for his people. How effective can he be, given the fact that they don't have a lot of free press in Iran, sir?
Really, Larry?
Well, given that
thank you.
Relatives and other people that are spread around the world, I have Iranian friends right here in this very international community of Washington, D.C. It's unlikely he can keep that secret, just as he has not been able to do it with other things. But it's still very revealing. I mean, it's not surprising. He's dug his heels in here, but it certainly is disappointing. Because he refuses to face the reality. And why doesn't he want to face it? Well, because they're paranoid and insecure about their own people. And he's trying to manipulate their opinion. And I think he knows, and certainly all of his leaders know, that they're on their knees here. I mean, he just came out of a bunker for the last 12 days with Israeli jets flying over day and night. I mean, the psychological and emotional impact of something like that on the leaders, I mean, the population was terrified for sure and delighted to know they're going to be able to recover from that. But certainly the leaders surrounding the Ayatollah know full well, how bad this situation is for them. And I think it presents some opportunities here to at least try to permanently change their behavior. I listened to the discussion that Senator Graham had, and I agree with him. The president, initially said, well, what's the purpose of having negotiations with these guys? We've taken down their nuclear program. That was the objective.
Thank you for that, Michael.
they're likely going to continue to
Raywall,
stiff
thank
him.
you for joining.
But it is worth a try. And he changed his mind and said, no, let's get on with this thing. We have a lot to offer them if they're willing to make some change. But the change has got to be fundamental. I depart with Senator just a little bit here. The first thing has got to be independent inspectors go to all nuclear sites, assess the damage. If it still needs to be dismantled,
I don't
then they dismantle it. They don't agree to that. There's not much else to talk about. And then certainly you've got to stop funding the proxies. You've got to cease terrorist operations, and overall stop the malign and aggressive behavior in the region that has so destabilized the region for 45 years. And yes, recognize the state of Israel, that they have a right to exist.
Okay, thank you so much.
The reality is, will they comply with that? It's unlikely.
You like adobo,
but it's
Eric?
worth trying. And there's a pretty good deal on the table for you.
Survival, potentially, right?
Remove sanctions. Yeah, survival. Remove sanctions, free trade, kind of behave as a legitimate country, maybe take the threat away from their people. If their quality of life goes up a little bit, it may take the edge off of them somewhat in terms of their constant consternation. I think they're aggravated by the fact that the economy is in a tank. Certainly they're aggravated by the control that this regime has over their everyday life, their thoughts, their ideas, how they dress, their culture, everything.
I'm not a boss.
Some of that would never be removed as long as these thugs and killers are in charge. But I do think it's worth a try, and we shouldn't be
Gray. How old are you, Gray? And where are you watching
them
right
60
now?
days to come to the table last time around, and perhaps there's another offer to have some discussions. There's a ceasefire that's holding for a few days now. We all hope that continues to hold as the Ayatollah considers his options. We'll see what he decides to do. I want to ask you about this Pentagon briefing this morning, because I saw your response to it, and I could tell that you were very moved by parts of this briefing. And also struck by the tone of
I am
the defense
Cleopatra,
secretary,
Mark?
and you compared him to a prior defense secretary. So if we can control him, let's play these back to back. First, the current defense secretary, and then
I love listening to the news when I scroll.
The reality is, you want to call it destroyed,
after
you want to call it
defeated,
defeated, you want to call it obliterated. Choose your word. This was an historically successful attack. We should celebrate it as Americans.
Do you have American in you? The answer is no. You say, would you like some?
أفضل جهاز
Not the
اقتصادي
best pick up
وضد
plan
الكسر.
though.
هذا الجهاز خلف مشابه للاس 24 الترا، وحتى لو انكسر معك ضمان سنة كاملة يتم إصلاح شاشتك على طول.
Oh, nice of it, Lisa.
وحتى لو توسخ معك
I'm from the Philippines, guys, but I'm working here in the UAE. Okay?
It's interesting to me that a government that
How about
consistently
you?
does not tell the truth seems not to pay a penalty. Everything they say is accepted. Everything they say is repeated.
Yeah.
Everything they say, notwithstanding the fact that they have lied
Oh,
over
Larry,
and over
you're
and
too
over
young.
again.
I'm 38.
And yet there it comes. They said this. What do you think about this?
some pushback there from Don Rumsfeld. A little trip down memory lane there for those of us who remember him in office. Your thoughts on what you heard in there this morning, sir?
Yeah, I mean, similar. I mean, the reasons were different, certainly.
Who are you talking with?
I had a lot of dealings with Don Rumsfeld, and certainly, if he had a thought, he expressed it. And the press room got a full dose there.
Ohio.
But I think what we saw in Secretary of Defense Hegseth is, just his
How old are
incredible
you?
frustration
21. You're too young.
dealing with such a misrepresentation.
Just like a baby.
And his emotion and passion is driven by what he believed was a fundamental insult to those who participated in the operation. And that
Can you marry older than you?
the intensity of his comments today.
I'm 38.
And look at that misreading of the report was intentional, given what was in that report, that it was preliminary, that it was low confidence.
Really?
The top of the chain of command had not seen that report yet anyway, but here we are sharing it with the American people and our adversaries as well.
7 years.
But then the second part of the briefing by Chairman Kane I thought was really stunning in the sense that he brought it alive for us in terms of the people. I've not seen anything quite like that before. I commend.
Thank you so much.
I commend the general, for doing that.
Thank you, Larry.
So graphically illustrated what 2 minutes of life was like for 44 Army soldiers facing the biggest threat of their life, and their performance to protect the base and to survive depended on how well they functioned as a team and how well they knew their job. And here's the other thing, how well they held on to their fears. We train our people that it's okay to be afraid. Don't be scared of being scared. But
Hi,
we teach them how
William,
to hold on to that fear, and you can operate in a fear environment, in a
If you
very
say
threatening
so.
environment.
How old are you?
Very few people are born with that. We can train our people to cope with that kind of thing. And then the second thing, dealing with the actual bombing of the operation.
Gregory, verified.
I was stunned when he said we had people working on this for 15 years. One started in 2009. By the way, the target was provided by Iranian resistance. And then they watched that target every single day as it emerged into something very sophisticated and almost impossible to deal with. And they had to bring in consultants in, I'm sure.
Of course,
and they concluded that we don't have anything in the arsenal. We have to get a special munition. They did that. They developed it. They tested it.
William.
And then we saw the marvelous results of it. We haven't done anything like that in terms of special munition, special target, time to develop it since the atomic bomb at the end of World War II. I mean, obviously different intensity, but there is a sufficient analogy here. And credit to those people who devoted more than 15 years of your life.
Extraordinary.
Thank you, Gregory.
It's extraordinary dedication. It's extraordinarily patriotic. I'm so glad, as you are, that he shared this story with us. You think about these individuals going around with this in their mind and in their heart all day long. This is their mission, that they want to take out this Iranian nuclear facility, and that they are dedicating their lives to the proper study of the geography around it, the geology of the ground around it, every brick, everything that they watched, built, and then they said, you know what, we've now determined this is the kind of bomb that we're going to need to take it out. It's an extraordinary story, and I hope we hear a lot more about it. General Jack Keane, actually, everyone can hear a lot more about it.
Let me add one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me add one thing real quickly.
Hi, Larry Bauer.
When people
honey.
talk about our troops,
and
they've been with them, this is what we're talking about. I mean, we get inspired by the people that are around us. I often, people, what was it like for you to have a career in the military? I said, I lived a life among heroes.
Yeah.
If I was going to write a book, that's what it would be. My life among heroes. I, every day, got inspired by the people he was describing here.
Gregory,
military and civilian who were dedicated to this cause, who sacrificed so much.
I have 3 minutes
right
more
for the American people.
to end my life.
I've always been in awe of them, and I love being around them. I still love associated with them to this day, and it was reflected in that briefing today, and I really applaud the chairman for it.
Well, we love being around you for that same reason, because we like to be around heroes, and we hope a little bit of it rubs off on the rest of us. General, thank you very, very much. It's always good to have you here. I hope you write that book, because we'd all like to read it.
I will end my live in 2 minutes, guys,
but
because
first breaking
I
tonight,
need
there is
to
a
make
major
ready
effort
for my
underway
event
to
today.
find and prosecute whoever leaked information about the preliminary low-confidence damage assessment following the U.S. strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. This comes as leaders at the Pentagon stage an aggressive and defiant news briefing this morning against insisting those attacks were successful. Again, insisting. President Trump maintains Iran nuclear fuel was not removed ahead of that attack, and his top military commander is praising a group of soldiers and for the pilots for their valiant efforts to eliminate the threat from Iran's counterattack. Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin reports from the Pentagon tonight on the
timeline. Where are you right now, Romulo, and where are you living?
Good evening,
How old are you?
The Defense Secretary was upset that a leaked preliminary intelligence report produced by his own defense intelligence analysts suggested just hours after the strike that Iran's nuclear program was merely set back, not destroyed. This video shows simulated testing using the massive bunker buster bombs against a mock-up of the Iranian facility at Fordo, a plan that had been conceived and honed over the past 15 years by Pentagon targeters who first saw the shaft in satellite photos in 2008. The B-2 stealth bombers dropped 6 bunker buster bombs each into 2 ventilation shafts above Fordo. The air shafts provided a direct path unimpeded by rock into the main complex underground. The fuses were timed so the 30,000-pound bombs blew up underground 5 feet off the floor.
The pilot stated, quote, "This was the brightest explosion that I've ever seen. It literally looked like daylight."
The Iranians covered the air shafts with dirt and concrete in the days before the strike. The first bunker buster was dropped to remove that concrete. Images of a dozen trucks outside Fordo in the days ahead of the strike led some to speculate that some of the 440 kilograms of highly enriched uranium may have been moved to another location. President Trump, after the briefing, quote, "The cars and small trucks at the site were those of concrete workers trying to cover up the top of the shafts. Nothing was taken out of the facility. Would take too long, too dangerous, and very heavy and hard to move." General Kane praised the 44 young soldiers who operated the 2 Patriot missile batteries that protected the U.S. air base at Al Udeid from 14 incoming Iranian ballistic missiles, Iran's only response so far to the weekend strikes.
Imagine you're that young first lieutenant, you're 25 or 26 years old. You know that you're going to have approximately 2 minutes, 120 seconds to either succeed or fail.
I'm here in the UAE.
The key question the secretary would not answer, where is the 440 kilograms of near weapons-grade, highly enriched uranium right now? Nuclear experts say the 60% highly enriched uranium, which is a gas, can be moved using steel cylinders, each the size of a water heater or scuba tank. The Iranians told the IAEA before the strike they plan to move it.
Marquinitos. Hello.
General Griffin, live to Pentagon.
Oh
Jennifer, thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will.
Mark Don Marquinitos, thank you for joining. So. Oh, Mark Don. Where are you living right now, Mark Don? So I will, before I end my live right now, because I'm gonna make ready for myself, because I'm going to my event later. Thank you everyone for coming. It's almost an hour since we are live. Albania, you're from Albania. Thank you, Albanian. Thank you so much for coming. So thank you everyone. Thank you guys. God bless you all. So what we all want is peace. Peace in all countries. Thank you, mentor. Bye. Bye, everyone. Wow! Wait, guys. Wait. I have a gift. Early gift. I love this blue. I have a gift, guys. 18K gold from a friend. Yeah, we're going to work later. We will use this on our part-time. I told you, mentor. Never mind, mentor, the negative one. Never mind. Just focus on the positive one, okay? See? Oh my God, it's exactly. I don't have earrings. So how can I put this so I remove? Because I don't have my birthday is near, guys. So I have an early gift. So someone will give me gifts there. Yeah. Woo! Like that. I wear when I go to my work. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you. My birthday is September 23. Hey. On my birthday, I want necklace store. I will check on necklace. How much the rate of gold today? Because I really love gold and I have my ring, but I need to change the, change the design, because the design is not good. I want smaller one. Because just like I'm thinking it's an investment, because when you go and when you don't have anything, you can sell it. Just kidding. So that's it for today, everyone. Thank you, mentor. Don, thank you so much. Dub Style, Dalit. Coming up little after the 10th. Really? Advance happy birthday, Dub Style. Thank you for coming. But I'm going to end my live right now. See you later, guys. I'll prepare my event today, so I make live later. So I will show you guys the event tonight, okay? Oh no, I'm not leaving you guys. I'm just going to make ready and to prepare my dress tonight. YouTube noob, hello po. Have a nice day. Hello to. Thank you for joining YouTube. Joking. Oh. Keep smiling and sharing the light. Thank you so much, mentor. Indika Sativa. Oh, what am I missed the news. Later, because right now I'm gonna make ready, so I will check on the next news update. Indika, thank you for joining. Suresh BR, God bless India. God bless you. Vladimir, oh, stomach make me crazy. Why? What happened? Vladimir Putin. Don't get angry at me because what I just want is for peace, and I don't question anyone, any country. Okay, so I don't have any questions or problems to any country. What I just want is peace for all, so we can travel to, if we plan to go for vacation, so we don't have any worries like that. Oh, I don't have Telegram, Vladimir. Oh yeah, you're right, Don. I don't have any sides. I just want peace. Okay, so you must understand that. Rafi Aziz, hello, thank you for coming. My WhatsApp is it's really personal, from my work, only for my madam, because my madam monitoring my WhatsApp, my employer. Okay, exactly. Peace to all and happy lives with family and friends. That's what we do, because only prayers can help also. Okay, guys, so thank you, everyone. Bye bye for now. Okay, see you later. I will make live later. God bless everyone, and don't be angry. Thank you. God bless you guys.